Welcome back to Julie's Village. I'm glad you're here. I am especially excited about this episode because I have my good friend Debbie Gorley with me, and I had the honor of, or I guess the privilege of, being one of the teachers at the school that she was a principal at, and I got to work closely with her. And she is one of the most effective communicators I've ever had the opportunity to work with. She is very good about listening and about sharing her thoughts articulately and with kindness. So I'm excited that we have this opportunity to learn from her today. So, with that, we'll jump in. And Debbie, will you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, and it's so good to see you.
You
And I want to thank you for letting me be a part of this journey and having an opportunity to share some of my experiences. I really feel honored to be here.
Thank you.
I will begin with a little bit of my background, my personal background. My husband and I have been married for 41 years, and we have three amazing adult sons, two equally amazing daughter-in-laws, and we're blessed with twin grandsons who are 4 years old, and I get to watch them twice a week. So
fun.
they are so funny. They keep me young. They keep me laughing, and they're wonderful. And then joyfully, we're anticipating a new grandson in September.
Oh,
So it's right around the
congratulations.
corner. Thank you.
That's exciting.
So I have a lot to be grateful for and a lot to look forward to. On the professional side, as you know, I'm a retired educator, and I worked my entire career at the West Ada School District. Starting as a teacher, I was a high school English teacher, and then I moved to counseling.
Why did you decide to move to counseling?
It's very interesting because at the time I had students, as they do with all teachers, that come and share things with you, and I felt a responsibility to know how to handle it in a way that would certainly not cause harm, but would help them.
Yeah.
So I didn't go into counseling with the idea of ever becoming a counselor. I went into counseling so that I would have a better skill set as a teacher. And that's what motivated me to take the courses. So I transitioned into that, and I ended up doing counseling in both elementary and secondary settings. And then I had an opportunity to join a team, a district team, with three other people, and we mentored first year teachers for an entire year. So we traveled around the district, and we provided support and instruction and, pedagogy, and just supported them as first year teachers need support, as you know. So we did that, and that led me into administration. So I've had a very varied career, but I can honestly say I never left a job that I didn't love. I was never because I wanted to change or, I was dissatisfied. It was always because I thought going in that direction would help me be better at what I was doing. And then opportunities would come up, and I ended up taking them. So that was, in reflecting on it, I realized I love learning. I truly do. And I love working with people. So it was perfect. It was a wonderful career.
I love that. And it
wonderful career.
And it showed in everything you did,
Yeah,
that you
well,
loved
thank you.
people and that
I
you
do.
loved learning. You were passionate about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks for giving us that background. So I wanted to pick your brain about your gift with communicating. And I'm just curious if you would just have some general tips for communication.
Well, there are probably books and books and books about communication. The experts could provide probably much better tips than I. But from my experiences, I've always just had a tendency to self-check, so I kind of see communication as a school playground where you have this fence and it gives you the boundaries, and then within the fence, there's a lot of flexibility. And that's kind of how what I use as a self-check. So regardless of the audience, regardless of the mode of communication, I always try to be honest and I always try to be accurate. Sometimes information can change, so accuracy may be presented more than once, but I always make that an important goal of mine. And then honestly, I feel like you just have to be a good listener. And it's something that sounds easy to do, but it really does acquire some effort. And I learned that as a takeaway with my counseling background. So it's easy to hear things, but not always easy to listen.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you're in a meeting and you're doing that last minute prep, because time constraints in an educational setting, you're hearing what the team's saying, but you're really not listening. Or maybe you're thinking about the other million things you need to do while the conversation's being had. So you're hearing it, but you're not really listening. Um, so when you listen, you are in the moment and you're thinking about patterns. What patterns do I hear? And what emotions are a part of those patterns? Is the person speaking showing that they're worried about something, or they're concerned, or they're fearful, or they've had a lot of disappointment, or they're enthusiastic, they're excited, but most often people will repeat in different ways particular patterns that you can pick up and then acknowledge that in a way that can maintain productivity in the conversation, or perhaps ease people's mind before you go into an action plan. So I think good listening, just acquiring those skills to be a good listener is really, really important. And, then I guess I would say within the boundaries, you need to be flexible enough, just like kids might be climbing or jumping or throwing balls or making up their own games, depending upon the audience, you want your information to be timely. Because what you'd present to teachers at the beginning of the year is not what you'd present at the end, or what you'd communicate to parents with the, initial meeting is not what you're going to present later on. So it needs to be timely and it needs to be relevant. And for me, again, a self-check is listening to what people are saying. And I have an example with the school that had high-performing students. The teachers kept saying things that showed frustration that with students because they weren't displaying any intrinsic motivation with learning. They were completing the task, they were performing above proficient, they were doing extremely well, but they just didn't seem to have that curiosity and for wanting to reach out and learn, or for wanting to learn more. It was just all about performance. And when they performed, that was enough. They didn't need to do any more. And so hearing that, the school began discussions on how do we get students to take ownership of their own learning. So it's not just the teacher who has ownership or the parents that have the ownership, but that they too have ownership. And when that discussion started, I never knew where it would end up. But it ended up with book studies, it ended up with kindergarten through fifth grade, progress monitoring themselves and drawing graphs of their progress, setting goals. And I thought, when communication is relevant and you get everyone involved, it can be fabulous.
Yeah.
And that experience for me was wonderful because it started with just listening and hearing feedback of what the frustrations were. And that's going to be very different in every school. There'll be a different setting, a different need. But I think those are the important things to kind of pick up on making. So timely, relevant would be those, flexible items depending upon where you're at. And if you have time, and I'm sorry for the length of this explanation, but
I love it. Keep it coming.
if you have time, I would strongly encourage communications inventory, because especially when you're working with the same group of people for an extended period of time, like in a school setting. The communication inventories allow you to determine how you best like communication. So, and then the idea is not for us to know how we best like it, but for us to know how our team likes it. So we can communicate in those ways. Because when we communicate how they like it best, we'll be more productive. And if you have a driver on your team, they like facts and they want to get the task done. And, I know what needs to be done. I know how to do it. I'm going to get on it right away. If you have an analytical, they like facts too, but you need to slow down just a little bit. I need more information. I want to have background research. I want to know if it's been done before. Was it successful, unsuccessful? I need a little bit more time. You need to give me information and a little bit more than just bullets, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you have an expressive, they're going to give you all kinds of ideas. They love to talk about it before an action plan is put in place. So, brainstorming probably is a good way to communicate before you do an action plan of some sort. And then you have amiables who they are very pleasing, so just don't muddy the waters. Give them information straight. They'll get it done. They'll do it. But just don't keep muddying the waters for them. They'll get it done. So when you know whether it's a faculty, and primarily our faculty is this or that, or if you have a collaborative team and on our team we have
Mm-hmm.
these forms of preferences, I think it really helps in how you communicate. It's a
Yeah.
knowledge base that is well worth the time, um, and I think very insightful.
Well, and I was thinking as you were sharing that if a parent is listening to this and they hear that and think, oh, I definitely see myself as any of those, it's okay to share that with the team right out
Yeah,
too, to
absolutely.
come into the team and say, hey, I'm a driver, so please just give things to me straight.
Yeah.
And that,
That's right. And times when, if they are someone who just needs more information or time to process, it's okay to have breaks.
yes,
It's okay
yeah,
to be quiet. Sometimes we want to fill that space as quickly as possible, but just time for processing for them to um, decide how they feel about it, just
yeah.
how much information's been given to them. So yeah, I feel it's helpful for everyone to kind of understand how we prefer to communicate and then do our best to communicate in other ways.
So you said, what did you call that? A communication
Inventory.
inventory.
Yeah.
And how could somebody find one if they wanted to do that?
They're online. They're all different sorts, and they may have different names. The driver might be named something different, but
Sure.
typically they're similar enough that you just take an inventory, you score it, you can kind of decide. You might be a little bit of two in
Mhm.
two areas, versus just one, but I think it's very helpful. So in the playground area with flexibility, I put that because it's not always the most, you have to determine if it's appropriate for the group that you're with. But if it is, I'd encourage the use of it.
I
So I
love
think it
that.
just gives you a broader knowledge base on ways to communicate
Yeah.
and in not threatening.
I'd like to go back to something you said a little while ago. You were talking about listening and how you became um, a, a better listener. That's something you worked on. Do you have any ideas of strategies that people can try to help them become a better listener?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the strategies that I'm sure you've probably heard of them. It's just looking for the patterns. I understand you must be frustrated, all right? I get the feeling you've had a lot of frustrating experiences. Really makes a difference to someone, or also just asking clarifying questions, to make sure that what your takeaway from their conversation is accurate. And then sometimes just repeating back what they say because it validates or how they feel. And they'll tell you right away, most often, they'll go, exactly. And then you're like, oh, good.
I got it.
Or they'll say, no, not really. And you're like, I got to listen a little bit better, you know. But yeah, I would just say clarifying questions, repeating back what you, and it's not repeating back to be annoying, you know. It's
Right.
repeating back in an honest way to say, am I hearing you right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like, so it is just, and being with them, I think, in the moment, really just being with that person. Sometimes it's about solving a problem. Sometimes it's just listening. You know, maybe the problem can't be solved by you, but just knowing that you're there to listen. That's
Love that.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, with all of that, I guess just general guidelines in especially if you are a parent and you're going to come and be with the school team for the first time, or principals or other team players, if you are anticipating meeting with the team, do you have some, I guess, ideas or strategies that in that setting the team can use to help them just be effective communicators for helping children and helping in that meeting setting to keep things being productive? And
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is just recognizing everyone's an equal partner, regardless of the role that they bring to the table or the authority or whatever. Everyone is an equal partner. And that we have a shared goal. You know, sometimes I wish people could see behind the scenes in a school environment, because if they could see the hours teachers put in before school and after school, on weekends, the dedication and commitment that they extend, oftentimes for sacrificing their own family time, they would then know without a doubt how focused we are, how dedicated we are, how committed we are to helping children. I mean, I have asked staff and faculty members, numerous times, what gets you up in the morning to come back? You know, every single time it's the children. It's seeing that light bulb moment when they've learned something that is such a significant reward. I mean, it's priceless. So if parents could understand that that's where we're starting from, and we've been doing this for a long time, I think they would come in feeling so safe, because we do have the same goal, and that's to help your child. But we need each other because we know your child in a school setting, and those are a lot of hours of the day. So we have a lot to provide information on, but they know their child in a home setting. So we have a lot to gain in terms of knowledge from listening to how things are at home, and things they've tried, things that work, things that don't work. So I think if we could come in knowing, please trust us, we have a shared belief that we're going to do what's best for this child, and we're on equal ground, we're equal partners, we need each other's knowledge, and we bring to the table, like parents, they too bring to the table a lot of expertise. But when you think of the expertise in an MDT meeting, and you have special education teacher, general education teacher, school psychologist, occupational therapist, speech language therapist, I mean, principal, you counselor, you have people with expertise that I don't know where else you can get that when you have a concern for a child.
Yeah.
By just scheduling a meeting. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And so I think acknowledging that we're there to help, but also respecting the expertise that can be brought to the table with the educational contributions and with the family contributions. Working together can bring such success.
Are there ideas that you have as you say that about how we can show that we are working together, that we do value everybody's voice.
Well, one thing I think is when we make commitments in a meeting setting. So I'll commit, I will ask your child to come and bring a friend. We'll have a buddy lunch, once every 2 weeks. Or maybe that's what I commit, or maybe it's what the counselor commits, or maybe the counselor says, I will commit to a friendship group, or maybe the special education teacher says, I will commit to incorporating a new intervention and establishing a schedule that allows for that intervention to take place 3 times a week. But I think when they hear our commitments and when we hear theirs, so what will the commitment be at home? And we're all committing to a responsibility that we'll hold ourselves accountable to. I think that can be very helpful and that is often after a plan is made or when we're brainstorming a plan, it's what are the commitments. But you have to do a lot of listening, I think, before you can get to that point.
Yeah.
So listening comes first because you want to dispel any worries or concerns or frustration. So you get to an action plan, and a lot of brainstorming needs to happen. But then when the action plan is made and you have commitment, why the strength of that team is remarkable. I mean, and I think just letting parents know this is just the start. This is where we're starting. It's not where we're ending. That's the exciting part.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it that way. Thank you for sharing that. Like, it just rings true.
Yeah.
Such a
Well,
great.
you've been a model of it, Julie, in so many meetings.
Thank you.
I have a lot of learning that I have received with working with you. So yeah, we learn from each other.
We do it.
Yeah.
And that maybe that's another thought there too as we're listening is just taking opportunities to learn from each other. If you approach the meeting ready to learn from the other people sitting there, I think that can help to bring value to the team and
I do too.
and show that you do value what others are saying. If your mindset is I want to learn from you, people can feel that.
I think so too.
And it should happen from every point of contact, right? We have so much to learn from parents, and
exactly.
I have so much to learn from the school psychologist.
I agree. Yeah. It's such a unique setting,
Yeah.
It's a wonderful opportunity to support student success because we have all these people at the table.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of patterns, that student success and the student has come up a lot in the things that you have shared. And I think that is perhaps another important idea to throw out there for these meetings is that when you keep it centered on the child as well, it can be easy, I think, as humans to get caught up in whatever our agenda is. But if the agenda is always what is going to be best for the child,
absolutely,
you can't go wrong.
No, you can't.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those ideas. Anything else? And any other ideas come to mind? Or I think my next thought then from what you shared is that when we're talking about concerns and sometimes in these meetings or sometimes people have to bring up some pretty sensitive topics.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on how people can make sure that they are presenting information accurately and clearly, but are still being empathetic to whatever that sensitive topic might be? Maybe it's letting a parent know for the first time that there is something outside of the normal happening with their child, or sharing test results that aren't as positive as maybe the family was anticipating or the school team was anticipating. Any thoughts on
that? Difficult situations.
Yeah.
And I, again, would probably go back to acknowledging feelings. Like if you know you're presenting something that's difficult to hear, I would recommend stating that, saying, now I know some of these assessment results may be difficult to hear, but I would follow that up with, but please know this is just where we're starting. And we've had many children start here, and we're going to work together so that we come up with a plan and we progress monitor that plan. So to ensure its success, because if it's not working, we're going to come up with another plan. That's what we're here to do. But this is not where Debbie will be in the middle of the year, and this is not where she will be at the end of the year. This is just where she is now. And we feel very confident that we can make progress. So I think it's okay to acknowledge that because we know it's difficult. They know it, they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But I think just hope with the hope of knowing there, or the commitment to knowing that there will be progress, that changes it.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Then I'm in a group who's going to support, that will support me.
So what if a parent is the one coming to the team and they feel like they have the information that they're worried will be hard for the team to take it? Maybe they feel like something isn't going well and they want to bring that to the team's attention. Are there any thoughts on how that can be stated?
By the parents?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a couple situations come to mind, and I'm thinking how beautifully these parents handled it. And honestly, they were just truthful. And it does typically require a feeling of safety.
Yeah.
That they need to feel safe in that meeting. They need to feel safe with the members of that team when they're that vulnerable and sharing concerns that may cause them a lot of worry and disappointment, and that they didn't expect this to happen. Sometimes even grief, that things aren't the way I expected them to be, and I am longing for the way I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And it's gone, it's not going to be.
Yeah.
So I think creating whatever you can do to create a climate that is positive and supportive, and maybe it actually starts way out here in the school, the climate of the entire school. But when they're brought into the team, just as you said earlier, we can feel it. We feel if we're comfortable.
Yeah.
And so making sure families are comfortable and making sure that it may be a meeting where no decisions are made that day, and that's okay. It might just take the entire time to share experiences because it's a tough one for them to share. So we can't always be driven by agenda, can't always be driven by, timelines, yes. We have to be driven by those. They're pretty strict. But at the same time, we have to have, again, flexibility in that, what does this parent need? And how can we support them? And when they do share that information, of course, and all the teams I've had a privilege of being a part of, the confidentiality is always respected. So, but maintaining that confidentiality and maintaining, a perspective of non-judgment. There is no judgment. We're just here to support and to provide the ways in which we know that may help the child. And we know a lot of ways, so we're going to put those in place. I don't know if that really is helpful or not.
I think it is helpful. I think creating that safety, and I guess as a follow-up question that might help parents a little bit too, is just that sometimes we know that we have to be assertive about something. Might need to be, and that could be the school team, it could be the parents. Needing to present something, and they just know that this is something really important to them and they've got to be assertive about it. But it's so easy to cross that line into aggressive.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts or ideas on how to stay in that assertive area and not cross into the aggressive, but also not backing away too soon and being passive and not having needs met that way?
What comes to mind is just, there's no place for aggression in a meeting. It's not a meeting when there's aggression. There's no collaboration that can be had. There's no plan that can be made. It's kind of the showstopper.
Yeah.
In a negative way, not a positive one.
Yep,
It stops the show.
I agree. And can I jump in here
Yeah.
and say just some advice too from that showstopper? I have seen you do this in meetings before that have gone in that direction, and you have stopped the meeting.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
It's okay.
The meeting can be stopped and it can be rescheduled and more information can be collected. I didn't mean to.
No, I
steal your thoughts
know I
there,
have
but-
done that for various reasons. Not very often, but when you get to that point, relationships are damaged. And when relationships are damaged, you don't have the same productivity of a team as you would when you have positive relationships. So I'd always say, and I always believe relationships are the most important. So you don't ever want to cross the line where you would damage a relationship by what you say. And if I honestly can't say I've been in a meeting where a colleague's been aggressive, been fortunate, not in an MDT meeting, but I have had experiences with parents being aggressive. And I don't think they intend to be. I think they're defending their family, their child. They feel they have to be an advocate, and being an advocate to them means, being adverse.
And which advocate is an important role.
It is an important role, but not an adversary.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an adversary to be an advocate.
Yeah.
We're all advocates for the child. By the mere fact we get up in the morning and we go to school to do our job, we're advocates for our children. It's never appropriate to be an adversary, because then you're just damaging the relationships with people that are there to help.
Sure.
And that includes families. They're there to help. So
Yeah.
parents. So I would say, kind of do that self-check. We always need our own self-checks, and that is, will this, with how I'm going to present this, damage relationships? And yeah, maybe I need to pull back just a little on how it's presented, or give pause or space or time for the parent to ask some questions after that, or share, the next steps that we can do to move the child forward out of this place, of his or their current place, to be more successful. But just if it needs to be stopped because a side is aggressive, it needs to be stopped. It could be, I see that you're very frustrated. I hear your frustration. But at this time, I feel we're not going to be productive unless we can all contribute to our ideas on how we're going to help Debbie. So we can either take a break or we can reschedule the meeting. Which would you prefer to do?
Yeah.
Or if it's more appropriate, we just will need to take a break. We'll come back fresh. We'll start again. And we're going to find a wonderful plan for your child. Always ending with because that's what we do. We do find wonderful plans.
Yes.
We develop wonderful plans.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and right along with that, I was thinking through, like, would there be times when it might be appropriate to do a subgroup meeting? So rather than the whole team, maybe it is those time constraints, or maybe things have gotten they have gotten to the point where you can tell somebody's withdrawn and they're become completely passive, and you're not getting their voice anymore, or it has gone to the point of aggression, and that has stopped productivity. Would there be any benefit to just certain people meeting, or would you maybe recommend keeping it a whole team so everybody's on the same page?
Well, again, I think you have to know your parents, and they need to know your team and to see what they're most comfortable with. I think often the whole team has benefit. I know walking into a room with a table full of people that you may or may not know is extremely intimidating. But as we both spoke to earlier, the fact that you have this expertise at the table is such a unique experience. If later you need something and you're fortunate that you have a doctor you can call, but you don't have the ability to call a whole team together like we have. And I realize we have had physicians at the table at times, but you don't often have that kind of problem solving setup where you have expertise. And some of the best ideas I have had for students has come from an OT, on students that might need ways to fiddle or to exert their energy in order to stay in positive ways to stay focused, and some of the most positive ideas I've had given in a plan could be from a counselor or for a gen ed student from the special education teacher. So I think our expertise and experiences can still benefit any challenge that we're presented with. But if your parents are truly feeling like, I just cannot do that, then we respect that. And we just ask, what can we do?
Yeah.
Who would you be comfortable with? How can we start? With the hopes that we will get the team together, but the whole team, but
Yeah.
eventually it's just, we can take baby steps. There's no
Sure,
problem with taking
sure.
baby steps. Because again, that's what's best for the child, and we don't want our uneasiness to impact how we can further the success of the child. So I would say absolutely adapt.
I love that. Yeah. And when you say adapt, any thoughts on how to adapt there?
Well, I mean, often the parent is most comfortable with the teacher.
Mm,
So a lot of meetings could be with the teacher, and then maybe you bring in another team member, and
sure.
then you bring in another team member. And oftentimes with interventions, these people may be in place anyway because we're trying to do these interventions prior to bringing the concern to an MDT team.
Yeah.
So it may be that the system, and I love our educational systems, we have so many. It may be that the system we've set up for interventions already kind of takes those baby steps, and getting people comfortable with working and teaming. Because you never want a parent to feel like somehow I'm responsible or accountable for these challenges and I can't fix them on my own.
Yeah.
You never ever want a parent to feel that way. No, we all have challenges, and it does take a team. It does take a village.
Yes, exactly.
It takes a village. So please, parents, never feel that way. I mean, there is no judgment, and we've all had experiences where we definitely need a village to help. I think maybe the systems we have in place for our interventions at this point are so much more superior to what we had maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Even in a smaller time frame, I
Yeah,
would say.
they're remarkable,
Yeah.
and they help so many students in so many ways. But then that is pulling in people
Mhm.
that aren't just typically your MDT team,
Yes.
and maybe that makes it a little easier for that next step if that next step is needed.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you. Those are great thoughts, great ideas. So, right along with this idea of talking through concerns, oftentimes we've got a meeting that's going on, but something happened prior to that meeting to get us all there. Do you have any thoughts or ideas of how somebody can maybe initiate that process again with this idea of not wanting to be too passive, not wanting to be too aggressive, but just right there in that assertive zone? Whether it's a teacher or a parent.
They just want to call a meeting. Like right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on how to bring that up without maybe putting people automatically on the defensive of like, oh no, something's wrong.
And that is the teachers feeling that way or the parents feeling that way.
Either way,
Anyway,
yeah,
anybody.
yeah,
So we need a meeting. That's a situation. We need a
yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
I guess putting some thought into it, I would say if we had to call an emergency meeting and parents were invited and our team was invited, I would probably stick with what just happened.
Sure.
Let's just talk about what just happened. and then look at, what were the precursors? What initiated this? When was it okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then when did it go bad?
Mm-hmm.
So we can identify the situation. And then certainly for the safety of the student and maybe others involved, do we quickly need to put together a plan to
Sure.
ensure safety?
Sure.
And it may be revised when we
Mm-hmm.
have more time to think of all the elements that we need to incorporate, but um, we don't want to wait on a safety plan. So for the child or whatever the situation may be, if it involves possible threat to safety, then how do we put that together for the next moment or the next day?
Yeah.
So it would be prioritizing, what we need to know what happened, how it happened, when was it okay, when then went bad, so we can find out if there was something that initiated it. Um, and then what are we going to do about it? Well, do we need a safety plan? Well, we don't need a safety plan. Do we need a break? Yeah, we might need some breaks for the child.
Sure. Sure.
Do we need to have a more formal meeting? Yes, because you don't ever want to end an emergency meeting as your last meeting, even if when success is going to be shared. We don't
Yeah.
need more meetings, but let's get together and celebrate.
Yes, I love that thought. I
That
love
we
that.
don't have to have any more meetings. It was just a one-time thing. But if we do need more meetings, then we can plan and have an agenda.
I love that.
But I guess it would just be addressing those immediate concerns and
Sure.
prioritizing them.
And behavior, from what you were saying, it sounded to me like behavior was a thought there, but I think this is true also if it's an academic concern.
Yes,
That
I mean there are times too, and a teacher may just say, "I've seen it," or a parent may just say, you know, "I need help," and they
yeah,
come right in and we address it. I mean,
yeah.
we do. We don't put those things off. And again, it would be okay. What is the concern?
Mhm.
Um, what got us to this point? Can you give us some background?
Mhm.
And then how should we handle it? How can we make tomorrow better? Or how can we make the afternoon better?
Love that.
Better for you, better for the student. What do we need to put in place to make it more successful?
And I just want to point out something that you didn't say. You did point out the like this is what happened, this is what didn't happen. What you didn't say is be sure to tell everybody all of your emotions about it too.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for that,
Yes.
but perhaps not in that when you're gathering
Yeah.
people together.
Yes.
That is maybe not whether you're the teacher or the parent. Your emotions are important and valid, but that can I think it can cause people to create stories in their head
Right.
and go into the meeting anticipating things that aren't there if we bring anything else in other than what we saw, what we noticed, what we want to
and
see.
what we need to do.
Yeah,
And we do. We can acknowledge that by saying, you know, whatever emotion it is that is on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
that we acknowledge it, we understand it, and we will address it. But right now we have this immediate need to do what's best for Debbie, and so we're gonna use our time to put that together, and then we at our next meeting we'll be able to discuss and acknowledge these feelings to a much greater degree. I don't know. You'd say something.
Yeah.
I think acknowledging people's feelings is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes that's all they need. They just need someone to know they're upset, or they need someone to know they're worried, or they need to know something. Let someone know they want change.
Yeah. Which I do appreciate you sharing that too, because I feel like it teaches us something about the receiving end. When you're on the receiving end of somebody saying, we need to have a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
that acknowledging feelings and emotions right then, whether you're talking in person or a phone call or through an email, you can acknowledge those emotions, and that right there can help things to be more productive when you
It
get together
typically
as well.
de-escalates right away.
Sure.
Just acknowledging it, or I understand your feeling of this urgency because this frustration must have been built up over many weeks. But the most urgent thing for us to do today is to put a plan together for the safety of your child and for the success of your child. And we will meet again and we'll have a longer discussion,
Yeah,
you know,
great.
something. But yeah, those times do happen.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do. But
Yeah.
those are great ideas of
I
how we
hope
can,
so.
again, like you talked about, those relationships are so important. And there's ways that we can share our concerns and still maintain relationships.
Absolutely.
So,
You know, we tell children all the time it's okay to be angry, but you can't be unkind.
yes,
You know?
yes.
And as adults, it's the same thing. We can disagree or we can be upset, but, you know, we always need to be kind about it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, with those thoughts, do you have any just general guidance that you want to give specifically to principals? If a principal is listening to this, do you have any guidance you want to share with them about how to keep things going well with your whole school team, whether it's in these meeting settings or just working together as a faculty?
You know, I do think principals, like teachers, are at their best when they have their own leadership style. So I'm not sure mine would be the best for anyone else. It works for me, but um, I'm not sure I would be a good judge of if it would work for someone else. The only thing that I feel has been successful in the many systems we have in an educational setting are norms. You know, just like a teacher has systems of how we're going to pass in papers or how we're going to line up for specials, or, you know, how we're going to, conduct ourselves in a class discussion. We need systems in the way we operate and collaborate with teams. And so norms are such a non-threatening, easy way to establish expectations for how we're going to conduct ourselves. And it's a routine. It really is.
Yeah.
We're going to start the meeting on time. We're going to end the meeting on time. We're going to make sure that every participant is involved. We're going to active listen. You know, and it depends on the team of what norms you're going to create. But I believe they are just wonderful. I would have them for every situation, you know.
Yeah.
They just, and I do think the principal is kind of the person that has to be not the enforcer, that's too harsh of a word, but it has to be the person that makes sure everyone's accountable because
Maybe
team members sometimes aren't comfortable
sure.
calling out a colleague for not following the norm, but you still can do that in a very kind way, or you know, maybe the norms need to be modified, you know, if they're not working, but just having those norms set, I think is really important. And again, depending on people's leadership style, but I'm a proponent of shared leadership. I mean, in a building with the expertise that we've spoken about, the talent is just limitless. And you have so many people who are strong leaders that I think then a principal's role is supporting them in becoming the best they can be in not only their area of expertise, but as school leaders.
I love that.
You know, it's not my role to be the leader all the time. We share it. We share it in decision making. We share it in meetings. Well, you did marvelous presentations of information and introductions. There was no reason for me to to take on that role. I mean, and you see strengths in individuals and you know, the strengths that you have in conducting such wonderful community events in our schools. And, you know, you just allow the people to take those roles, not to necessarily delegate it to them because you don't want to cause unnecessary stress and worry and time constraints on already busy schedules. But when you see they are eager to do it, to support them in those roles so they are leaders, because the leadership talent in a school building is remarkable.
I love that.
So that's my style. Not everyone, you know, not everyone has the same style.
I love the two together, what you said about norms and allowing people to, the way my brain took it was just let people shine.
Yes,
let
them shine.
Let them do what makes them shine. Mm-hmm. And I think that the way you set your norms can invite that as well.
Absolutely can. Yes.
Yeah. And another thought, if you don't mind me adding to this, but I think one of the best ways that I ever had norms explained, for a while we were hearing lots about norms, but I don't think we understood what they were, so it felt like just another
Mm.
check box thing
Mhm.
that needed to be done. And then I heard somebody explain that, like, well, think about meetings that you've enjoyed and meetings you haven't enjoyed. Let's ensure that everything you do is enjoyable to the team.
Absolutely.
And I love that thought.
Yeah.
I became a believer in norms at that point
No.
as well.
And you certainly can put celebrations in norms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
having fun.
Yes, yes.
So,
And I was in a group where one of the norms we established was that there would be food once a month
love
because
that
food
idea.
makes a great meeting, and we were
We celebrate birthdays.
yes, yep, yep.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, just have a couple more questions for you. The next one is we talked a lot about school, but communication is everywhere.
Yes.
And you told us about being a mom and a grandma, and I have a feeling that if I asked any member of your family, they would say you are a central part of that family. And I'm
lucky.
curious.
I'm lucky.
So are they. Um, but I'm curious what you would maybe advice or thoughts that you would have about how we can take these principles of good communication and apply them to a family, or maybe some things that you think of that are specific to families that just help communication to go well, especially for families that have this added. I hate to say stress, but the reality is that
Yeah.
when things are outside of the normal, it increases the stress. So,
Mhm.
any thoughts that you have on how families can communicate well together, husbands and wives, parents, siblings?
What do you think is the most difficult part of communication in a family when they have those extra stresses?
For me, I would think um, that it probably goes back to that listening piece, that I know how I'm doing.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily know how everybody else is doing, and
Mhm.
sometimes I project how I'm doing on how everybody else
Oh,
is
that's
doing.
so insightful. Because then I think, again, that can be a self check, that, okay, we're going through a difficult time right now. So I'm going to check on everyone to see how they're doing. And you know your family well. Some people it can be a text. How are you doing?
Yeah, yeah.
Some people it can be a phone call. Some people it can, do you want to meet? You want to meet for lunch? Let's just see how you're doing. And just asking open-ended questions. Because when you ask open-ended questions, then people start talking.
Just in case, if somebody doesn't know what is an open-ended question, what do you mean by that?
It doesn't have a prescribed answer. Like when I said, what do you think is most needed in communication when these stressors are happening? That allowed you to really, to think about, well, what it would be and
Yeah.
formulate your answer. Or if I said, do you think that the most challenging thing in communication when you have these stresses is routine? And then you would say yes or no.
Yeah, yeah.
So an open-ended question is just allowing more thought to go into the answer and more personal opinion. So how are you doing? Or what are your challenges? Or what's working? What's not working? How can I help?
Yeah.
Um, are there any, is there anything I can do that could help you with those challenges? Or I'm so proud of these successes.
Yeah.
And maybe with families too, and communication is we often do communicate mostly about what's not working, but maybe if we changed it and emphasized what was working, that would make us feel a lot better, and it'd make us recognize and see things that maybe we weren't seeing.
Yeah. I love that thought.
Just noticing, gosh, so many good things are happening in this household.
Yeah. And if you were looking for an action item from this episode, that might be it, to take some time to notice what's going well. It's really easy and anybody can see what's not going well, but it takes some time and effort.
To see what is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then with the things that aren't working, maybe the action step is who can help.
Yeah.
You don't have to be on the journey by yourself.
Boy, isn't that a hard thing to communicate sometimes? That I need help and this is what I need help with. Yeah, I found myself caught in that trap many times.
Yeah. I think we all do because we take it personally as if it's a failure if we can't do it by ourselves. And it's not. It's a gift when we get to do it with other people because we learn from them, and we ourselves become better because of what we've learned. And I think if our goal is always to be our best self, how can I be the best I can be? How can I help you be the best you can be?
Yeah.
It then teaming just is automatic because I don't know if I can be the best I can be if I am by myself,
Yeah,
isolated.
that's a good point. It's a great point.
So it takes all of us to strive for that. I mean, I don't know if we really ever reach that point, but I think it's a good thing to strive for.
Just keep working towards
Keep
it.
working
That's
at it.
right. Yeah, I love that thought.
Yeah.
Well, I've got one more question for you along these lines. You kind of have answered it, I think, but I would love to know if you have more to add. That with this idea of it takes a village, if somebody wants to help in some way, what advice would you give to them?
I would say start with what you feel most comfortable with, your strengths, your area of expertise. It could be your knowledge, it could be your experience, it could be your time, it could be resources. Whatever it is you feel you could contribute, start there. And then I guess I'd say jump in.
Oh, I love that.
Because you're going to be welcomed and you're going to be needed and your contributions are going to be valued. So don't hesitate. Just go for it.
I love that. I think sometimes we might see a news story or hear a personal story from somebody else and think, well, I couldn't do that. But that's okay.
That's okay. What can you do?
Yeah, start with what you can do and jump in.
Yeah.
I love that thought. Debbie, thank you so much for being here with us today. I have learned so much. I'm so glad that
Well,
I got
it's
to.
an honor. It really is, and it's so fun to see you. And I just want to say I appreciate being invited, and I really think that Julie's Village is just a remarkable opportunity to share and to communicate out ideas for others so that we do continue learning. And we continue learning so that we can enhance the lives of students and their learning. It's for all of us. So I love the idea of Julie's Village is doing that.
Well, thank you, and you were a big part of that today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, and I'm glad that you were all here today. I hope that you could just feel that goodness and that sincerity that was coming from Debbie. I can give personal witness, I guess, that I've seen her live these things. She's not just saying them; she lives them. If any of this was helpful for you today, I hope that you will consider liking, subscribing, sharing it with others. And if there are ideas that you have for future videos or people that you would like to see come on the channel, please feel free to leave that in the comments. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.